Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mark Lazell. I'm the business website director for Healy Consultants Group, and I'm based in Singapore. I have with me this afternoon Mr. Apurv Trivedi. He's our client engagements manager, and he operates out of our Dubai office. Good afternoon, Apurv.
Good afternoon, Mark. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, sir. How about you?
Doing good, doing good. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
And you too, and you too. Apurv, I believe that we're gathered here today to talk about a client you have from South Africa who had a Seychelles company, and they approached us with some very specific requests. So I'm excited to hear all about your work with our clients and how you were able to provide some solutions. So will you first of all just outline a little bit about the client and what they were looking to achieve, please?
Sure, Mark. It's one of the very interesting engagements that Healy Consultants Group has project managed in recent times. The client is a South African national who had a business set up in Seychelles, and this company was actually involved in humanitarian aid and mine action, particularly for the United Nations. And they operated in high-risk jurisdictions like Afghanistan, South Sudan, where they would deploy their bomb-sniffing dogs and do anti-mine action, where their dogs would just go search for war remnants or any active bombs that might be there to be diffused and removed. So they had a very interesting activity. And now the challenge with the engagement was the client was actually looking for a stable banking partner. And given the activity they had and the incorporation of their entity, the jurisdiction, it's not a very favorable combination for most reputable banks. So
you're talking about Seychelles here specifically, right, Apurv?
Yes. Yeah. So Seychelles is traditionally considered a tax haven jurisdiction, and in the eyes of most reputable banks, it's not something very trustworthy. Though they've been trying to improve their reputation, but that is what the common perception is even today. So when the client came to us and he said that he's looking for a new banking partner, maybe more stable. So that they were looking for access to trade financing facilities as well. So and the client had an existing bank account in Botswana, but again because of the jurisdictions they were operating in, the relationship had not been going really well. So they initially came to us to find them a banking solution, and over the first few calls that we had made it very clear to them that we'll try and find you solutions for your Seychelles company. But if you're looking to get tier 1 banking partners, then it is most likely that you will have to redomicile. The client fortunately was actually looking to redomicile because he'd been operating in the space for some time, and he had the idea that the best way for their business is to redomicile. So they were very happy with our more trustworthy advice to help them run their business rather than just trying to get a banking engagement and then come back to them with no options. So they were really happy with our transparent and trustworthy advice at the onset.
And what would be in this sort of case, this sort of client profile, a reputable common redomiciliation option, Apurv?
So, given the business that they were in, the business activity is something which is of a challenge in most jurisdictions, and you're required to provide a lot of documentation. But we had done a research for another client recently along the same lines, and we had identified UAE, Singapore, and United States as the top 3 options to set up their businesses for these activities, because the banking systems and the authorities are more aware to such businesses and understand how these businesses works. So that was our recommendation to the client as well.
Very good. And so tell us a little bit more about how the engagement panned out from this point, Apurv.
So initially what we agreed with the client was that we will start with a bank search, try to find them banking partners, and we'll try and find out if they can onboard the Seychelles entity of the client itself, or if the client redomiciled, they would be happy to onboard them in case the Seychelles entity was a problem. So I think we contacted close to 40 banks for the client, and in most of the bank requests, it came across that they wanted the client to redomicile to a more reputable jurisdiction. So that's what we went back to the client with, and we said, there are banking partners that are willing to onboard you, but not as a Seychelles entity, as a more reputable entity that you can maybe redomicile to. So that in fact was the solution we went forward with eventually.
Excellent. And so is the engagement finished? Is it complete now, Apurv? And if so, what are some of the key takeaways that you have from it?
So a big challenge midway through the engagement was when by the time we'd completed the research and we recommended our client to set up in DMCC, because some of the UAE banks were happy to onboard them, and the client was happy with the bank size, safety, and the facilities that it offered. So we had come to the conclusion that we'll redomicile or set up a new entity for the client in DMCC, and they will make it the base of their operations going forward. But there is a time frame that is required for a DMCC setup. Typically speaking, we're looking at around 4 to 8 weeks for the entity to be set up and the bank account to be opened. And for a UAE bank account to be opened, the bank signatory needs to travel to UAE. So while we had done this research, our client's bank account in Botswana unfortunately was being terminated, and the client came to us that he wanted an immediate solution at first. It may be a temporary solution, but he needed an immediate solution by the time they can set up their DMCC entity. So at that point, what we recommended to the client was that he purchase a turnkey solution with us, wherein we offer an existing UAE company with an existing bank account, which he could use to maintain his business continuity. And at the same time, we would in parallel do the DMCC setup, which could then become the base of the operations for him.
Understood. Well, this is very intriguing, very interesting, and I'm sure that these sort of engagements are what you guys live for. Actually, Apurv, they keep you motivated and inspired. So thank you very much for giving us the rundown on this client. Is there anything else you'd like to add at this point?
Oh, absolutely. This engagement actually was. If you look at the timing of this engagement, it was actually the worst timing for the client. This was right through the most impacted period of the COVID-19 pandemic, where all the travel restrictions in global economy came in, and there was travel restriction for the client to come in from South Africa to UAE. And like I said before, they cannot open a bank account or they cannot be appointed as the bank signatory till they visit UAE. So the client was actually in a flux situation where though he had the ownership of the turnkey that we had provided him, he still did not have access to the banking because he could not visit UAE. So, and the client was desperate to maintain his business continuity. So what Healy Consultants eventually offered as a solution was that Aiden to continue as the bank signatory and Healy Consultants to actually become a paymaster for our client for the time being till he can travel to the UAE and be appointed as the bank signatory. So we did a specific paymaster and nominee bank signatory contract to protect our client's interest and give him some assurance about his money being safe with Healy Consultants Group. The client was actually very happy and confident in the services that we offered, and we ended up providing him a paymaster service for about 4 months. till eventually the client would come to UAE, travel, take ownership of the bank account of the turnkey that we offered him.
Very good. Excellent, Apurv. Well, thank you for giving us all that rundown again. And we look forward to speaking to you again with other interesting, challenging engagements. And once again, thanks so much for your efforts.
Sure, absolutely, Mark. Always a pleasure speaking with you and sharing interesting engagements. I will look forward to our next opportunity.
Likewise. Thanks very much, Apurv. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Mark. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.